Hello, sports fans. It is Monday, November the 25th, year 2013, and as usual, a lot to get to in the sports world, so let's get it going right now. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you caught some of the games over the weekend. Let's recap what went on in the sports world the last few days. Let's start in the NFL. And remember, 4 teams had a bye week this past week. Buffalo, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, and Seattle had the week off. Let's start with the Thursday night game where the New Orleans Saints went into Atlanta and beat the Falcons 17-13. Saints up to 9-2, Falcons down to 2-9. This was a very, very even game. It was a classic case of a good team finding a way to win and a bad team finding a way to lose. And make no mistake about it, the Falcons are a bad team this year. It's been a lost, dismal year for Atlanta. They've been ravaged by injuries on both sides of the ball, a million guys out. It's just a lost year for Atlanta. Very important win for the Saints. They're only a game behind Seattle for best record in the NFC, and they play Seattle next Monday night. And remember, they're only a game ahead of Carolina for the division because Carolina is on absolute fire. We'll get to them in a couple minutes. So a very important win for the Saints. They pull it out down there in Atlanta. Let's get to the Sunday games. Let's start in Cleveland where the Pittsburgh Steelers just demolished the Cleveland Browns 27-11. Nice job by Pittsburgh. They've won 3 in a row. They are up to 5-6. Roethlisberger playing well. The defense is starting to put some things together. Pittsburgh right back in the playoff race. There's a million teams now in the AFC that are 5-6 battling for that last spot in the playoffs. I think Tennessee holds that last spot right now. Everyone's alive in the AFC. Awful back-to-back weeks for Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland could not play any worse these last 2 weeks. And before that, Cleveland was starting to show some potential. They were starting to put some things together. They have played 2 atrocious games the last 2 weeks. Cleveland, another 4 turnovers this week after they had a million miscues last week. Campbell gets knocked out of the game with a concussion. Whedon comes in. He's horrible. Remember, Hoyer's already out for the year. Cleveland, all sorts of issues at quarterback again. And just an awful performance by Cleveland. And Cleveland, you got to eventually beat Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh beats Cleveland every single time they play. This is a big rivalry. Cleveland's got to get into this rivalry. I mean, I like overall what Cleveland's starting to do. They have some pieces. They got to figure out who their quarterback's going to be. I mean, Whedon looks awful. He looks like a bust. Campbell is very inconsistent. He plays one great game, then he plays a bad game. Hoyer, who's out for the year, looked good, but we only saw him for a few games, so who knows where Cleveland's going at quarterback. Awful back-to-back weeks for the Browns. Nice job by the Steelers. Now, I'm still not convinced the Steelers are going to make the playoffs, or even, if they even make the playoffs, they're going to do anything serious in the playoffs. But I got to give them credit. They have rallied. They've won 3 in a row. They're starting to play a little better. Let's see if they can win in Baltimore on Thanksgiving night. So the Steelers get the win there. Let's go to Detroit where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Detroit Lions 24-21. Lions down to 6-5. Buccaneers up to 3-8. Tampa's won 3 in a row. Tampa actually has some talent. They're not as bad as we all thought. This was an awful loss for Detroit. Detroit had 5 turnovers in this game at home. Terrible job by Detroit. They didn't play well last week in Pittsburgh, and they played even worse here against Tampa Bay. I mean, I could not believe the Detroit miscues. They're down 3 points. Then Durham has that big fumble on the sidelines. Then they come back and they have the completion to Johnson at the 5-yard line with time running out. And, it falls out of his hands and Tampa Bay intercepts it. And Tampa Bay hangs on for an improbable win. Nice job by Tampa Bay. They've won 3 in a row. They kept fighting. Give Shiano credit. He's been under a lot of fire this year. Has not lost the team. They keep playing hard and they do have talent. Nice job by Tampa. Detroit. Is Detroit ever going to get out of their own way? This was a miserable loss for Detroit. Awful job by them. I mean, I cannot believe they lost this game at home to Tampa Bay. And the way they lost it, 5 turnovers at home. Typical Detroit. You cannot have these type of performances. You want to be a good team. You want to be a contender for something serious. You got to take care of business here at home. You can't lose to Tampa Bay at home and have 5 turnovers. Awful loss by Detroit. So nice job by Tampa Bay there. Let's go to the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field in Green Bay, where Green Bay and Minnesota played to a 26-26 tie after one period of overtime. Green Bay up to 5-5-1. Minnesota 2-8-1. Very, very strange game. Minnesota was up 23-7 in the fourth quarter. Green Bay rallies behind Matt Flynn of all people. Flynn actually rallies the troops. Game gets tied. Both teams kick a field goal in overtime, and it ends in a tie. Nice job by Green Bay rallying here. They were dead in the water. Nice job by Flynn bringing them back. Green Bay's still alive here. They're 5-5-1. Remember, Chicago and Detroit both lost. They're only 6-5. Have to have Rodgers back in the worst way. Have to have Rodgers back. They'd love to get him back for this Thanksgiving game against Detroit this week. That is a huge game in the grand scheme of things for that division. So you'd love to get Rodgers back, but who knows when he's coming back. And when he comes back, who knows how he's going to play. Minnesota, listen, they're another bad team that finds a way. Now, they didn't lose, but they should have won this game, Minnesota. They're up 23-7 in the fourth quarter. Awful, awful tie for Minnesota, and just an awful year for them as well. So Green Bay does get a tie. They did show some signs of life. They were dead and buried. Matt Flynn rallies them for the tie. All right, let's go to Kansas City, one of my favorite stadiums, Arrowhead Stadium, where the San Diego Chargers go into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs 41-38. Chiefs down to 9-2. They've lost 2 in a row. San Diego up to 5-6, plus Hallie and Houston both hurt. Keep an eye on that. Kansas City's got a couple of injuries. Can you explain San Diego to me? I can't figure them out. I mean, we know they have a lot of talent. We know Rivers is good. He can be as good a quarterback as anyone in the league when he's on. I mean, Rivers rallies late. They scored 24 seconds left in this game to win the game. Can you explain San Diego to me? They're up. They're down. They look great. They look bad. You think they're going to be a playoff team. Then they lose to Oakland. They lose 3 in a row. You think they're dead. They go into Kansas City and win. San Diego is the most frenetic team in the league. I mean, they are so up and down, so inconsistent. You never know what you're getting from San Diego game to game. I mean, they go in Arrowhead and put up 41 points on the Chiefs, who don't give up points to anyone. The Chiefs defense is really good. San Diego shredded them yesterday. San Diego, very strange team. They're another team 5-6. As strange as San Diego's played this year, they're right there for the last playoff spot. Strange, strange stuff in the AFC. And San Diego, I cannot figure them out at all. You never know what you're getting from San Diego. They can beat the best team in the league, and they can lose to the worst team in the league. They're that strange. Keep an eye on Kansas City. They've lost 2 in a row. Couple of injuries. They play Denver this week again. Very, very interesting time for Kansas City right now. Let's go to St. Louis, where the St. Louis Rams beat the Chicago Bears 42-21. Rams up to 5-6. Bears down to 6-5. Bears 3 turnovers. Too many injuries on defense. I mean, Chicago is right there still for the division, but I don't love this Bear team. Cutler is still out. The Bears have all sorts of guys out on defense. I mean, the Rams put up 42 points on them. I mean, and the Rams are very improved. I think the Rams are very improved. I think the Rams are about a year away from maybe making a move. They get Bradford back next week. These young guys the Rams have are starting to put some things together. We know Fisher can coach. I like what I see for the Rams. They may be a year or so away from maybe making a move. Chicago, they're right there for the division. They got to get Cutler back. Their defense, though, their defense has been ravaged by injuries, and I don't know if you can fix that, so the Rams get the win there. All right, let's go to Miami. Let's go to South Florida, where the Carolina Panthers do it again. They rally and beat the Dolphins 20-16. Panthers up to 8-3. They've won 7 in a row. They're nipping at the heels of New Orleans for that division. Miami down to 5-6, and this is a game Miami is going to just lament for the rest of the year if they don't make the playoffs. I mean, what a terrible loss for Miami. They're up 16-3 in this game, and Carolina comes back and wins. Carolina right now is living large. They can't do anything wrong. They rally to beat New England last week, and then a few days later, they rally on the road to beat Miami. Very nice job by Carolina. Their defense is really good. Cam Newton's playing really well. Carolina is a very, very good team, and they get the job done here. Awful loss for Miami. You are up 16-3 in your building. You have to win the game. I know Carolina's good, but come on, Miami. You're up 16-3 in your building. Have to hang on and win. Miami's another one of those teams in the AFC that's 5-6, but this loss could really cost Miami in the long run. Nice job by Carolina. They can do no wrong right now. Let's go to Baltimore, where the Baltimore Ravens beat the New York Jets 19-3. Baltimore up to 5-6. Another team that's 5-6. The Jets down to 5-6. Is the whole AFC 5-6? This was just over from the start. The Jets' offense has hit the wall. Geno Smith looks awful. They may have to make a quarterback change, the Jets. Their defense is playing really hard. They're getting nothing out of their offense. I mean, Smith looks terrible. Maybe the Jets make a switch at quarterback. Maybe it sparks them a little bit. But the Jets right now cannot move the ball from here to there. Their defense kept them in the game, but they just can't move the ball at all. Baltimore just stomped on this Jet offense. The Jets couldn't do anything. So Baltimore, nice win. They win 19-3. That sets up a very nice Thanksgiving night matchup, Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So the Ravens get the win there. Let's go down to Houston. Where the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Houston Texans 13-6. Jacksonville up to 2-9. Houston down to 2-9. Houston, you should be embarrassed. Houston, you've lost 9 games in a row. You were a Super Bowl contender last year. You could not score a touchdown in your building against Jacksonville. Houston might get the number 1 pick in the draft. That's how bad they've been. They have shown no pride. They have shown no heart. I cannot believe on back-to-back weeks at home, Houston lost to Oakland and Jacksonville. That is not easy to do. Houston, you are embarrassment. To me, Houston's got to rebuild this whole team. The coach has got to go. They can fire everyone, change quarterbacks. The running back is hurt. Maybe you want to trade him. Johnson, the receiver, is getting old. Houston needs to rebuild this whole team. Maybe keep some of the defensive guys. You want to keep Watt. This team needs to be rebuilt. This team is a soft, gutless mess. You couldn't score a touchdown at home against Jacksonville? Shame on you, Houston. Awful loss. Give Jacksonville credit for at least fighting. Everyone's been making fun of them the whole year. They get their second win of the year. Let's go out to Oakland, where the Tennessee Titans rally late and beat the Oakland Raiders 23-19. Tennessee up to 5-6. They hold the last playoff spot in the AFC. Oakland down to 4-7. Fitzpatrick to right with just 10 seconds left. I got to give it to Fitzpatrick. I'm not a big fan of him. He did play well yesterday. Did rally the troops late. I mean, Tennessee, hard to believe they are in the last playoff spot in the AFC. Are you kidding me? The winner of this game yesterday was going to be the last playoff spot in the AFC, and Tennessee got it. The Raiders at 4-7, they're only a game behind. I mean, unbelievable. So nice job by Tennessee. I still don't love Fitzpatrick, but he did play well yesterday. Oakland, just when you think Oakland is going to start to do something, they have one of these losses and sets them back. So Tennessee gets the win there. Let's go out to the desert where the Arizona Cardinals just trample the Indianapolis Colts 40-11. Arizona up to 7-4. Colts down to 7-4. Let's start giving Arizona some props. They are 7-4. They are right there for the playoffs. They're right there with the Niners. They're tied with the Niners. Arizona's playing some really good football. Their defense is very good. They play very well in the desert. Carson Palmer's played well. I've been on him in the past. Carson Palmer has played very well. Arizona is doing a very nice job. It's time for me and everyone else to start giving Arizona some respect. They are playing some good football. And Arizona now has a decent home field advantage. Remember back in the day when they played at Sun Devil Stadium and maybe like 20,000 people used to turn out for their games and there was all these empty seats and there were more fans from other teams than Arizona fans there? They have a nice home field advantage there now. So Arizona doing a tremendous job. Props to them. Indianapolis, listen, I love Indianapolis. I love Luck. We think they're going to be a really good team for years to come. They're showing some warts now. I mean, they are giving up a lot of points. They're falling behind in every single game. Indianapolis is starting to show some warts. Listen, they're going to make the playoffs. They're a couple games ahead in their division. I don't know what they're going to do once they get there. They are showing a lot of warts. Remember, Reggie Wayne is out. So Indianapolis not playing good football at all, and they just got embarrassed yesterday in the desert. Let's go to the Meadowlands in New York, not far from here, where the Dallas Cowboys beat the New York Giants 24-21. Dallas up to 6-5, and they go into first place in their division. Giants down to 4-7. Cowboys win with no time left on a field goal. I mean, the Cowboys had a big lead in this game. Giants showed some tenacity by rallying, but then Dallas on that last drive made every big third down play, drove down the field, kicked the game-winning field goal with no time left. Huge win for Dallas. Bad loss for the Giants. This could very well bury the Giants. The Giants got off to such a bad start this year. Couldn't afford to have a loss like this. They did. I think that buries the Giants for the rest of the year. Nice job by Dallas. I still think Dallas is going to win this division. And let's go out to New England for the Sunday night game. What a wild game this was, where the New England Patriots at home beat the Denver Broncos 34-31 in overtime. Broncos down to 9-2. Patriots up to 8-3. Denver was up in this game 24-0 before you can blink an eye. New England basically turned the ball over like 3 times in a row. Denver ran back like 3 defensive touchdowns. Before you blinked your eye and you sat down with your popcorn, it was 24-0 Denver, and you're like, oh, this game's over. Sure enough, at halftime, I don't know what Belichick said, but he must have had the greatest speech in halftime history. New England comes out flying in the second half. They take a 31-24 lead. Denver then ties it at 31. We go to overtime, back and forth. Neither team can get the game-winning score. The elements were terrible yesterday. The wind was whipping around. It was freezing out there. Finally, New England punts, late in overtime, and it hits a Denver player trying to block, and New England takes over deep in Denver territory and kicks the game-winning field goal. So nice job by New England. After they had the tough loss against Carolina, they come back here from 24-0 down and beat Denver. Very nice job by New England. I still don't love New England's defense. They did get their corners back last night, and Talib is a very good cornerback. Very good cornerback. They did get them back. Still have some issues on defense. The defensive line, the linebackers have a lot of injuries, and you saw Denver ran the ball at will last night. Peyton Manning did not play well last night at all. What did he have, like 70 yards deep into the fourth quarter? I know the elements were bad. Peyton Manning, and I know I'm going to get some Denver fans upset with me here. Peyton Manning, when the game is not set up perfectly for him, he sometimes does not play well. I saw it when he was at the University of Tennessee. He always lost to the University of Florida. Peyton Manning, when you squeeze him a little bit, especially in the playoffs, and this was kind of like a playoff game, Peyton Manning is not the same player. He's just not. I mean, I'm sorry, folks. He may be the greatest regular season quarterback ever. I'm not denying that. And he does have a Super Bowl. He is not the same player in the playoffs, and when conditions aren't exactly right for him, when you rattle him a little bit, he's not the same guy. And he did not play well last night at all. The elements really bothered him. He played a terrible game. Had a couple decent throws when they were down 31-24, but overall not a good game for Peyton Manning. And that's what you worry about with him in the playoffs. You saw it last year when the Ravens beat Denver in overtime. When Denver let that game slip away, Peyton Manning could have bailed out Denver in that game. Did not play well in overtime in that game. Peyton Manning, when you squeeze him a little bit, doesn't play as well as he does in the regular season. It's just a fact. He's a better regular season quarterback than a playoff quarterback. So New England, tremendous win last night. Denver, by the way, at Kansas City next week. Huge game for the grand scheme of things in the AFC. So that's where you were in your NFL yesterday. I'll tell you, I thought it was a very good week in the NFL. I mean, there was some exciting games. A lot of those early games came down to the wire. I mean, you had a tie in the NFL. You had a game go deep in overtime. New England had the big comeback. A lot of games. There was like 5 early games yesterday at like between 4 and 4:30 Eastern Standard Time that was still on the table. They could have went either way. Very nice week in the NFL. I thought it was a really good week. As far as college football transitioning, it was the complete opposite. It was one of the worst weeks in college football history. And we've had a bunch of these this year. I think we've had at least 4 weeks in college football that have been downright awful. And this week was awful. The big game was Oklahoma State and Baylor, and Oklahoma State routed Baylor. I mean, that game was not close. I mean, Florida State bombed another team. Alabama rolled. Ohio State rolled. All your teams in the top 25 basically won by double digits. There was not one close game. Every game was a blowout. 2 teams scored 80 points this week. I mean, another team scored almost 70. It was blowout city in college football. This week, however, is going to be a great week. Thanksgiving week in college football is to die for because you have the classic rival games, Alabama at Auburn, Florida State at Florida, Ohio State at Michigan, on and on and on. It is a to die for week in college football. We will do our college football picks tomorrow with Mr. Joe Spano from Sirius Satellite Radio. Make sure you tune in there. So that was the college football. As far as the boxing, Manny Pacquiao returned to the ring and he beat Rios by unanimous decision. I watched this fight on tape. I refused to pay for it on pay-per-view. No way I was paying $60 for this. It was a terrible undercard. Pacquiao looked really, really good. I thought he won basically every round. Looked really good. Looked like the time warp did him well. Who's Pacquiao going to fight next now? I know we're talking, maybe Pacquiao Mayweather stirs up again. I'll believe it when I see it. Those two sides were never able to agree before. I will believe it when I see it. I hope they can get the fight done. I don't think it's going to happen, but we can always hope. Maybe Pacquiao fights Juan Manuel Marquez again for the 5th time. Maybe he fights Bradley in a rematch. Remember, Pacquiao got that awful decision loss to Bradley. Maybe they fight again. Pacquiao, though, I thought looked very, very good after the long layoff, so I did catch that on tape. As far as college basketball, I did watch North Carolina beat Louisville. Nice win by North Carolina. And North Carolina had a choppy start to their season, but they looked really good yesterday. Beat a very good Louisville team. Duke hung on again and beat Vermont in Cameron. Duke won by 1 point against Vermont. That's the second game in a row I watched Duke that they hung on. They hung on against East Carolina, hung on here against Vermont. Listen, we all love Duke. We all love their team. We all love Parker, this great freshman. Duke's got some defensive liabilities right now. And it's a long season, and Coach K is the defensive coach, so I'm sure they'll get that taken care of. Right now, you can score on Duke. Vermont scored at will, and Vermont almost pulled this game out. Vermont lost by 1 point, and Vermont actually hit a shot, but it was after the buzzer. Vermont almost won this game, so nice job by Vermont making it close. Duke escapes. Duke, got to pick up your defense. I did watch Charlotte beat Michigan in the Puerto Rico Classic. Charlotte won the championship there in that Puerto Rico Classic. I was surprised about that. You had teams in that tournament like Georgetown, Florida State, Virginia Commonwealth, Michigan, and Charlotte ends up winning the tournament. So nice job by Charlotte there. Virginia Commonwealth lost a couple games in this tournament. They lost to Florida State, got bombed by them, and then they lost to Georgetown. And I like Virginia Commonwealth. They did not play well over the weekend. So I did watch some college basketball. As far as the NBA, Derrick Rose hurt again for the Bulls. Can this guy catch a break? This guy could be out again for the whole season. He's having surgery today on his other knee. Remember, he hurt his knee last year, missed basically the whole season. Now he hurts his other knee. We're not going to know exactly how long he's going to be out until they get in there, but can this guy catch a break? Imagine if he goes out again for like a 3rd straight season and the Bulls promptly lost by 40 to the Clippers the next night. So I'm crossing my fingers that this injury is not as serious as it may be. But I mean, I hope Derrick Rose gets back on the court, very, very soon. I hope he's only out a couple of weeks. I hope it's not another season ender. I mean, that would be terrible for Derrick Rose, terrible for the Bulls, and terrible for the fans of the NBA. You want to see Derrick Rose out there, so let's keep our fingers crossed that it's not as serious as it might be. Knicks and the Nets continue to struggle. That whole division, by the way, is bad. The Knicks look lost in space, and I'll tell you, the Nets better get some healthy bodies on the court fast. I mean, I don't know how long they're going to give Jason Kidd. I mean, the Nets look terrible. Got to give them a break, though. They do have a lot of injuries, but right now the Knicks and the Nets look awful. So I did catch a little NBA. The NBA goes on forever. We'll keep an eye on when Kobe Bryant gets back as well. Kobe Bryant may be close to returning to the court. NHL, I didn't catch a lot of the NHL this weekend. I caught a couple games. I did watch Montreal beat the Penguins 3-2. That was a very nice game, I'll tell you. You ever want to go to a great hockey city? Go up to Montreal. It is like the mecca of hockey. I mean, they have some of the best fans in all of sports. I mean, if you want to go to a really great hockey town, get up to Montreal and see a game. So I did watch Montreal beat Pittsburgh. I also watched Colorado win a game. I'll tell you, Patrick Roy is doing some job with the Avalanche. What a job he's doing. So I watched a little bit of the NHL. Remember this year, a lot of outdoor games in the NHL. They're not only doing that Winter Classic. I think the Winter Classic on New Year's Day this year is the Red Wings and the Maple Leafs at Michigan Stadium. You know, that's the annual Winter Classic where they play in the football stadium and they get the huge crowd. But they're doing a lot of outdoor games this year. I think the Rangers are playing a couple games at Yankee Stadium. I think the Kings are playing at Dodger Stadium. So if you get a chance, if some of these games are in your area, get out there to one of these outdoor games. It's a very fabulous setting for these games. You get to watch some good hockey as well. Also in the NHL, they have different playoff formats this year in the NHL. They changed up the conferences and everything. Now you're still going to have 8, playoff teams in each conference, but what they did is they made 2 divisions in each conference now. And basically, if you're in the top 3 in each division, you automatically qualify, and then they take the next 2 best teams. So you could have 5 teams in one division make the playoffs. So the hockey playoff format, as far as who makes the playoffs, a little different this year, so keep an eye on it. Of course, we got about 6 months of hockey before we start talking about the playoffs. So I did catch a little bit of hockey, not that much. As far as baseball, little news and notes with baseball. McCann, the catcher formerly from the Braves, he signs with the Yankees. That's a very nice pickup for the Yankees. The Yankee catchers were abysmal last year. I mean, Posada retired. No one could hit the ball at all. So that's a nice pickup for the Yankees signing McCann. So that's a little bit of your hot stove baseball there. All right, so that is it for today. You guys are all caught up with your sports. I will be back later on today, actually. I'll be on later on today.